Good morning, everyone. My name is Gill. I'm the Salt Lake County District Attorney, and we are here this morning to share with you our findings from the June 14th shooting at the No Kings March in downtown Salt Lake City. Before I go, I just want to take a second to thank the Salt Lake City Police Homicide Unit, our homicide team from the Salt Lake County DA's office, and also Ms. Laura Ah Loo, who's the widow of Mr. Arthur Ah Loo, for their patience and also their hard work in this whole process. Before I announce that, let me share with you, the timeline that has led to this moment. On June 14, 2025, law enforcement officers responded to a shooting at the No Kings March in downtown Salt Lake City. At the scene, law enforcement discovered that one person, Mr. Arthur Ah Loo, was found with a gunshot wound to the head. Mr. Ah Loo was transported to a hospital where he ultimately succumbed to his injuries. At the scene, they also found a suspect later identified as Arturo Gamboa, who was taken into custody at that time. At the scene, they also discovered one member of the safety team with the march organizers named Matt Alder, who was involved with the shooting, having fired, as they would later discover, 3 shots. Salt Lake City Police Department began to investigate and gather evidence at the scene. Mr. Gamboa's original arrest, detention, would have expired on June 19th. Since the investigation was still ongoing and nothing yet has been presented to the DA's office, the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office requested an extension to continue to hold Mr. Gamboa from the court, and the court granted that, extending our hold to Monday, June 23rd. On Friday, June 20th at 9 a.m., preliminary presentation of the investigation was presented to the homicide team of the District Attorney's Office. In all homicide cases, homicide cases are presented to the members of the entire homicide team and our senior leadership as a general screening. At this presentation, it was determined that there was not sufficient evidence to make any final decisions on charging anyone, and this time was since the investigation was ongoing, no final decision would happen before the 23rd. So a decision was made to release Mr. Gamboa, and our homicide chief, Josh Graves, filed a motion to release Mr. Gamboa, which the court signed that same day, which was June 20th. On July 2nd, Salt Lake City PD made a more comprehensive presentation of their investigation to this office. At this presentation, some additional requests and follow-up were requested, and the investigation remained open and active. The homicide team continued to work the case, and the case presented a very nuanced and complex set of facts. For example, we have some very liberal open carry laws in the state of Utah. We also do not have any specific prohibitions against guns in public places or events, and like some other states also have. We have also a jurisdiction that provides a safe harbor to the use of lethal force against others, which had to be a part of any ongoing consideration. The statute in Utah in part provides that an individual is justified in threatening or using force against another individual when and to the extent that individual reasonably believes that force is necessary to defend an individual or another individual against the imminent use of unlawful force. In theory, you can have 2 individuals open carry and simultaneously have a situation where one may use deadly force if the objective facts support an imminent fear for one's life or the lives of others. Our homicide team grappled with these such scenarios and possible contradictions in the vacuum of Utah state law. And one consideration at that time was that the nuance and the complexity of the issues that we had to see if we could avail ourselves of other processes. And so we decided that one option was to request a grand jury. Unlike other states where a prosecutor can ask for a grand jury, in Utah we have to make that request to a panel of 5 judges to authorize a grand jury. Since the grand juries only meet quarterly, the panel had already met, so we requested an expedited or an emergency request on July 14th which was denied on July 18th. We were told that the next meeting would be in October and to make that request at that time. On September 18th, the court reached out to our team to let us know that if we wanted to request a grand jury panel review, to do so by October 6th. We certified and requested a grand jury by October 6th and subsequently presented the panel to the panel on the 16th, requesting that grand jury. The panel generally has 30 days by which to make their decisions. After we had done so, our homicide team continued to work the evidence in the case. We also learned that on October 14th, there was a case that was ruled upon in Massachusetts, which had some similar issues, and that started to help us clarify the legal challenges that we were confronting as a team. And that helped us to start to actually help us solidify a decision at that time. However, since we had already requested a grand jury panel, we wanted to wait to make sure that we respected the process. On November 5th, we heard back from the panel that they had denied our request for a grand jury. But as we had already started to move in light of the case from Massachusetts, we had one last thing that we wanted to finish getting done, which was that we wanted to get the forensic information as to the bullet that was used that caused the death of Mr. Ah Loo to be also reviewed. And we finally got that final notification of that review on November 20th. In the interim, we also met with the family early on, and then as late of yesterday, we met with the widow of Mr. Ah Loo and their legal defense counsel, and shared with them the direction of our conclusion. And that brings us to today. Today, as we speak, we are filing one count of second-degree manslaughter against Matt Alder, and also formally declining any charges against Mr. Arturo Gamboa. Please note, these are allegations only, and Mr. Alder is presumed to be innocent of any wrongdoing as is in our system. So now I will share with you that we file our charges on the following probable cause. On June 14, 2025, at approximately 2000 hours, Salt Lake City police were dispatched to a shooting that occurred at 151 South State Street in Salt Lake County along the route of No King's March that was occurring in downtown Salt Lake City that day. Upon arrival, officers located Arthur Folasa Ah Loo lying in the street with an apparent gunshot wound to his head. Mr. Ah Loo was transported to the hospital, where he was later declared deceased. Several witnesses directed officers toward the corner of 100 South and 200 East, where an individual that matched the initial description of the shooter was wrestling over a backpack with another person. The officers detained the individual, later identified as Arturo Gamboa, and observed blood on his hands. Gamboa was wearing a black shirt, black cargo pants, and black boots. Detectives located 3 loaded rifle magazines in Gamboa's cargo pants, along with a knife. In his backpack, detectives located a disassembled AR-15 rifle, a Venezuelan flag, and other identification documents. Gamboa had a flesh wound to his outside left abdomen from an apparent gunshot. Officers also made contact with an individual identified as Matthew Scott Alder, who was wearing a high-visibility green vest. Alder was accompanied by several other individuals also wearing high-visibility vests, who later were identified as a volunteer safety team. Through the course of several interviews, detectives learned that the primary purpose of the safety team was to provide medical care, crowd management, and de-escalation. All safety team members wore highly visible vests and carried first aid kits and radios. Several safety team members voluntarily carried firearms. There did not appear to be any formal training to be a volunteer for the safety team. While on the scene, Alder made several statements that were captured on a responding officer's body cam. Specifically, he stated, The guy was around the corner, had an AR, and was ducked down and was loading his rifle. I fired a couple of shots towards the building to ward him off and to get him to stop, and he just took off. Later in this interaction, he stated, "I can't believe it. I saw him. He was loading an AR right there. I can't believe it. I pulled behind the column and I took shots at him." On the evening of the shooting, detectives interviewed safety team member AF, who stated that his attention was first drawn to Gamboa as he walked northbound on State Street near the Maverick and Liberty Sky apartment buildings. AF observed that Gamboa was dressed in all black with a hood over his head, carrying a black backpack and something tinting out of it. He then observed Gamboa split between the building and hide behind a column. Gamboa began to pull what AF recognized as a part of a rifle out of his backpack and was struggling to pin it together to the other portion. AF began to be concerned, stating that he understood open carry, but this felt different as Gamboa was assembling it under cover. AF recalled calling out, "Gun, gun, gun," over his radio. Gamboa then began moving towards State Street, towards the march, and AF saw the barrel of the rifle, and he believed that Gamboa was about to commit a mass shooting. He was joined by Alder and recalled both of them yelling, "Stop, drop it, drop the gun," but Gamboa was not responding. AF stated that he should have dropped him, but by the time Gamboa was moving, AF did not have a shot. AF stated, quote, "There's no way I can shoot him when he's running towards the crowd. I mean, I'm accountable for every bullet that comes out of my gun," end quote. As Gamboa continued to move towards the street, AF recalled Alder, who was standing to his left, fire at Gamboa. Several days after the incident, Alder was interviewed by Salt Lake City police detectives. Alder stated that he was getting a drink at Maverick when he noticed AF waving him to come to his location. When he got to AF's location, he observed Gamboa in complete black gear, black hooded, black everything, with an AR-15 in a lower position. He described Gamboa being tied up against the wall and observed his right hand sliding up the weapon, which he believed was him, quote, "charging the handle," end quote, making it ready to fire. He then described Gamboa psyching himself up and hunched down like he was in a combat mode. Alder removed his 9mm firearm and recalled thinking, "Oh my God, this is happening. This is really bad. Somebody's going to get hurt." Gamboa began moving towards the crowd, and when Alder yelled, "Stop," Gamboa didn't respond. Alder stated that is when he took his first shot. After this shot, Alder stated that Gamboa continued to move towards the crowd, and he yelled, "Get on the ground," and saw Gamboa's head turn towards him with the rifle still moving up from a lower position. He shot 2 more times at him, thinking, "Oh my God, I have to fire. If I please God, don't let me have to fire, but I want people to be as safe as I can." Alder demonstrated where he believed Gamboa was located at the time he fired. During the first 2 shots, he placed Gamboa to the south side of the Liberty Sky apartment building. For the 3rd shot, he placed Gamboa to the west of the corner of the building. Alder told detectives that he believed Gamboa was going to mag dump into the crowd of people to kill as many people as he could. He told detectives he observed other people open carry that day, and it did not cause him concern, but Gamboa's behavior scared the hell out of me. Detectives interviewed witness LF, who submitted a detailed statement shortly after the shooting. LF stated she was walking southbound on the east sidewalk of State Street when she observed security under the carport of Maverick building, yelling at a person behind her and drawing their weapons, giving commands to drop your weapon. LF turned around and observed the guy in black walking out towards State Street, kind of on guard, not really concerned, but also not just casual. LF noted that the male was wearing black from top to bottom, with only his eyes and hands visible. He was carrying a mean-looking rifle. LF stated that the male was holding the gun in his right hand with his, quote, finger not on the trigger, but it was outstretched beyond the trigger guard, end quote, and that his left hand was on the barrel. LF stated that the barrel was in a downward angle and that if it had fired, it would have hit her feet or legs. She said security continued to yell commands at him, and I understand the protest was loud, but it wasn't so loud that you couldn't hear someone yelling at you. And the male looked like he was fixed on State Street. LF stated security fired one shot at the male, and she began running when she heard two more shots fired. LF concluded her interview stating, quote, because of the man in black, I was concerned for the lives of everyone around me, and the guy that shot the gun didn't scare me, end quote. Detectives recovered multiple videos that captured portions of the incident. In one video from the dash cam of a private security car parked between the buildings, Gamboa can be seen jogging up the east sidewalk of State Street before turning east into the alleyway. Gamboa was dressed in all black from head to toe, carrying a backpack. In another video with a similar angle that captures the alleyway, Gamboa is observed behind a column in front of a garage door on the south side of the Liberty Sky apartment building. Within seconds of taking this position, AF is observed watching Gamboa from the sidewalk. Gamboa is bending over and removing items from his backpack and manipulating the items from behind the column. Approximately 55 seconds after Gamboa took this position, he is observed putting a strapped item over his shoulder as AF now continues to observe him from the carport area on the north side of the Maverick building. 22 seconds after Gamboa put the strap over his shoulder, Alder is seen joining AF under the carport while Gamboa is still behind the column of the apartment building. 7 seconds later, Gamboa begins walking towards State Street, carrying his backpack and the rifle. As he walks by an air conditioning unit near the building, he is seen throwing his backpack over his shoulder. 2 seconds later, he reacts quickly and begins to run around the corner of the building to the sidewalk and runs north. As this is occurring, Alder and AF are observed with their arms extended and firearms drawn as they stood just south of an exit arrow painted on the carport driveway. Alder continues moving north with his arms extended, stepping over the arrow. In yet another separate video from the apartment balcony on the west side of State Street, briefly captured the beginning of the shooting. Gamboa is observed walking upright towards State Street, with the barrel of his rifle pointing down towards the ground. Alder and AF can be seen standing south of the exit arrow when a shot rings out. The video then pans to the right, away from their location, and two more shots can be heard. Approximately 1 second passes between each shot. Another video was taken by DI from his balcony of the Liberty Sky apartments directly above where the incident occurred. In that video, AF is observed waving for Alder to come to his location as he is observing Gamboa. The video pans towards the march. When it pans back to the scene, Alder is seen walking towards the carport. The video pans back to the march, and approximately 12 seconds later, the words, get down on the ground, end quote, can be heard, followed by 3 gunshots. After the third gunshot, another command of, quote, get down on the ground, end quote, is audible. The video pans back towards the scene 1 to 2 seconds later after the third shot, and Alder is now on the north side of the exit arrow, walking northbound. LF is observed running south from the scene, and a photographer, JU, is seen lifting what appears to be a camera. The detectives interviewed JU and were able to obtain the photos he is taking in DI's video. So you have DI's video, and it captured JU. We saw a camera being lifted, so we were able to identify and recover those photographs. In the first photograph, Alder is depicted with his handgun raised, forward pointing north down the sidewalk. Gamboa is seen running northbound towards the end of the Liberty Sky building. Furthermore, in the same photograph, there are 3 individuals, one standing, 2 seated, that were in what appears to be Alder's direct line of fire and were in between Alder and Gamboa at the time Gamboa had rounded the corner of the building and during the third shot. Several other people are also depicted walking on the sidewalk. Mr. Ah Loo's body was located next to a car parked along the east side of State Street, adjacent to a parking lot north of the Liberty Sky building. The distance from Mr. Ah Loo's body to the arrow that Alder was standing near is approximately 49.3 meters, approximately 150 feet. The approximate path of the fatal shot from Alder's location passed 2.8 meters west of the corner of the Liberty Sky building and continued in a northwestern direction until striking Ah Loo. So that was 2.8 meters from the corner of the building as you would go into the sidewalk. That's approximately 6 feet. After the shots were fired, detectives compiled a video surveillance of Gamboa's flight from the scene. Gamboa is seen running near a parking lot to the north of the Liberty Sky building, carrying his rifle seconds after the shooting. Detectives believe that the video shows that Gamboa did not have a magazine inserted into his rifle at that moment. Gamboa is then seen running into a parking garage where he removes his hoodie and places his rifle back into his backpack. He then walks back into the crowd of protesters, passing several officers. Witness S.H. observed a rifle in Gamboa's backpack and seized his bag from him and called police to his location, where Gamboa was taken into custody. Detectives obtained another video depicting the moment Mr. Ah Loo was struck. In that video, Ah Loo was facing southwest, filming the parade as it passed by. He is standing near a parked car and begins to walk west into the march when 3 shots can be heard. Ah Loo falls to the ground immediately after the third shot. The report of the medical examiner ruled that Ah Loo's immediate cause of death was a gunshot wound that entered through his left temple, traveling left to right, front to back. A 9-millimeter bullet was recovered from his head. Detectives examined the rifle recovered from Gamboa's backpack and observed what appeared to be a dent to the handguard consistent with a bullet impact. Gamboa also sustained a flesh wound from the gunshot to his lower side abdomen. Based on the review of the video evidence, it is believed that these 2 impacts resulted from the first 2 shots fired by Alder. At the scene of the shooting, detectives recovered a bullet jacket fragment under the carport near Alder's location. Ballistic testing from Salt Lake City Police Crime Lab determined that the fired bullet jacket and the fired bullet recovered from Mr. Ah Loo's head were fired by Alder's Smith & Wesson 9mm handgun. The fired bullet recovered from Mr. Ah Loo had no markings or damage indicative of a ricochet. Our office has already communicated with the legal counsel for Mr. Alder, and we will be requesting a summons. At this time, I'm happy to answer some limited questions. Yes?
Why issue a summons and not seek detention?
He has been he's been cooperating. He is not considered to be a flight risk. And at this stage, we have issued a summons, and his counsel has agreed for that. Yes?
Arturo Gamboa was also shot. Why is he not being treated as a victim in this?
That's a great question. So here's the challenge that I've sort of presented. And so let me first of all just read to you the declaration that we have for Mr. Gamboa, and which we sent out to his counsel as well today. After applying the submitted evidence to existing Utah firearm laws and case law, our office has determined that there is insufficient evidence to charge Mr. Gamboa with a criminal offense for his involvement in the fatal incident during the No Kings protest on June 14, 2025. Although Mr. Gamboa engaged in what could reasonably be perceived as alarming and irresponsible conduct by assembling an AR-15 under the cover during a mass gathering, he was lawfully permitted to carry the rifle in a concealed and subsequently open manner under existing Utah law. At the point Mr. Gamboa was engaged by members of the self-described safety team, there is insufficient evidence that he committed a clear violation of criminal law, such as aggravated assault, possession of a dangerous weapon with intent to assault, or any other firearm related to offenses. So as I mentioned to you, we have very liberal open carry laws in the state of Utah. And you can open carry. There are no prohibitions. The only entity that can create any prohibitions in that would be our legislature, our policymakers. And so as such, in the state of Utah, everybody gets to carry if they want to. And if somebody freaks out, that's not it's not your fault. It's supposed to be the fault of the person who freaks out. And so we don't have any specific articulated offenses by which we can charge him with. So that's why we declined to file charges on him.
But no, why is there no charge reflecting Arturo Gamboa as a victim?
Okay.
He was shot.
Great question. So let me follow up on that. So what is interesting about Utah's law, since everybody gets to open carry, that we also have a very robust self-defense justification law. And so, is it logical and conceivable that I can have two independently open carry individuals where the conduct of one, so you look at status, conduct, and context, which may give rise to a self-defense claim. So as we stated in our probable cause statement, that the conduct may give rise to the perception of Alder that there was something for him to be worried about, and therefore the law would allow him, in the totality of those circumstances, to use lethal force. And this is the loophole that has been created by the vacuum by our policymakers that unfortunately could create hazard for innocent bystanders. And so as we went through the analysis of what we could charge, what would be reasonable, hence as we stated in our probable cause statement, I have the initial observation of AF. I have the initial observation of LF. I have Alder's perception and the totality of what is occurring. Now, while those circumstances can give rise in an objective way, but it is also what is otherwise protected behavior. And that is the thing that we were grappling over as we continue to work this case in sort of the vacuum that we find ourselves in without any clear-cut clarity, which can be enunciated either direction by our policymakers. If you go to an LDS church, you can't carry a gun in there. If you go to watch jazz, you can't carry a gun there. Those are private folks. But when it comes to any dangers that are inherently created in public space, that is the responsibility of our public policymakers. And so we found there's this gray area, this loophole, if you will, where the right accidental circumstances can create this very nuanced, complex problem that confronted us in this analysis.
some people thought when Arturo Gamboa was arrested, there was a double standard because Matt Alder was not arrested at the same time. Now, some people might say there's a double standard in reverse. You're charging Alder and no charges against Gamboa.
Okay, let me
How do you
see.
respond?
Yeah, let me see how I can respond to that. So let me take the first part first there. You have a shooting that occurs. It may be a mass shooting. It is a dynamic situation that is occurring. Officers are responding. People are being identified. And within the information that is available to the officers, it is my belief they acted appropriately based on the information that they had. Their job is to secure evidence. Their job is to secure and contain and create a zone of safety. And so they, based on what they had, arrested Mr. Gamboa. And as we said, our process is, we got an extension. And we were presented with that information so we could look at preliminarily. We met in this room on Friday, but we also determined at that time that we didn't have any final decision. So we made the motion for his release. That's our process, and based on what the officers had. Now, as to the second part of your question, again, we don't direct investigations. Police do those investigations. Mr. Alder was cooperating, making statements. He continued to make that information available as the investigation proceeded. Now, your last part of the question, Brian.
Well, the question is this a double standard in
No,
reverse?
no. So we follow the evidence. We follow what the evidence gives us. We follow what the applicable law is. And we went through a very sort of arduous process internally with our entire homicide team. And we tried to turn every stone we could. This is a very unique, nuanced first impression given in the sort of the vacuum of this reality that we find ourselves in. And so our commitment is to follow the law. And let me sort of quote to you one of the things. As I said, there was this case that came out on October 14th of this year in Massachusetts. And it gave us the analysis and also what we are arguing here, which is we believe that the third shot was the reckless shot. And while you may have a right to use lethal force, that doesn't mean that that lethal force can be used in a reckless manner. And the language that I liked from the case from there, and I think this captures sort of the nuanced challenge that we have. An assailant assumes the risk of being killed by her victim. A bystander, however, does nothing to trigger the victim's use of deadly force and cannot be held to have assumed the same risk as the assailant simply by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think that fits into what we're saying, that it is reckless conduct. That third bullet, almost 3 meters to the left of the building, over and through individuals who are sitting there at a large rally that is being fired down when you have a person standing next to you, Mr. AF, who says, "I'm responsible for every bullet I send down." To us, that is reckless conduct, and that is what we're charging. Manslaughter based on the evidence that we have.
What do you make of criticisms over how the system has treated Mr. Gamboa and Mr. Alder differently? For example, Mr. Arturo arrested immediately, your office had filed to try to keep him there while you figured things out. Now that things have been figured out, Mr. Alder just gets a summons.
Yeah, well, again, we issue things based on flight risk. We issue things based on whether somebody's cooperating or not, right? This is a serious charge, okay? And so we've issued summons before in different scenarios, right? So from our perspective, we're just trying to do it in the best way that we can. And as to any broader aspect of that question, I don't think we're in a position to answer that.
So just to follow
Oh,
up
sorry.
on something you just said. So you have AF who says, I'm responsible for every bullet, I can't shoot. And then you have Alder who does fire. How is that different than police shootings in which one officer fires and another does not?
Well, first of all, again, and I'm not talking about this case. Your question is a little bit more broader, so I want to be very clear, right? Here's a fundamental difference. Police officers have an obligation to react. They have an affirmative obligation to protect. And they are treated in a much more generous way in terms of the use of force statutes that we have. While you have civilians, they get to use lethal force as well. But my point simply is that under either scenario, there's nothing that says that you can do it in a reckless manner. And what I have here is Mr. Alder or any civilian out there sees something happen. They're under no obligation to act. But if you are going to act, and in the process your action is reckless that causes the death of an innocent bystander, then I think that is and should be chargeable. And that is, again, our theory is, as I said to you, that's why that Massachusetts case was so important. As we work through this, the question on a practical, again, separate from this case, the sort of the broader philosophical question that you're asking. If we have where two people who open carry can create what would be otherwise a legally defensible misunderstanding, I do not think it is good public policy that those misunderstandings should be paid by the lives of innocent bystanders. And that's a broader philosophical policy objection. In this case, our argument is that that third bullet was reckless, and if it is reckless, it is manslaughter. And again, let me emphasize, these are allegations only. There's a presumption of innocence that applies here. And let's not forget that. But I'm also sharing with you, again, there is a interesting vacuum potentially here. And we may want to address this because we probably don't want to have a similar convergence of facts and realities in a way that might end up with the loss of another person's life. And we can clarify those relationships and those accountabilities with good public policy, but I don't get to do that. That is the domain of somebody else.
Will you
Yes.
be asking lawmakers to close what you described as a loophole?
In my role as the elected district attorney, I do get the privilege on broader issues, and I think everybody wants to do the right, responsible thing, and I think it would behoove us. It doesn't matter. Nobody should get injured or lose a life if it's something we can remedy to clarify what that accountability looks like. We can remedy that. Look, there are many states here in this country that have great open carry laws, but they also have restrictions on gatherings and public events, so you don't end up with those kind of misunderstandings. So that's the range of possibilities that are available. And certainly, I think prosecutors would like more clarity than less clarity.
So with the first two shots by Alder, you following with justifiable self-defense?
What I'm saying is, under the totality of the facts, on the evidence that we looked at, in the way that the justification statutes are here in Utah, that may be available to him in that reasonable. So, yes, he can perceive and react to that. But the question then becomes, does that create a complete immunity? Or if you engage it in a reckless manner, is there some accountability? And our position today is that that third bullet, which goes outside of that backdrop, in a large gathering with so many different people, that was reckless conduct, and therefore it is chargeable. Again, that's an allegation only.
But the first two shots, even though it says that he has rifle,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even fully assembled.
Well, so here's the question. You get to open carry, that's your status. Then you engage in a conduct which can be both innocent and could also be alarming, okay? Which is secreting yourself to put that together. Now, under the law, you could also just take a knee on the sidewalk and start putting that gun together, and there's no violation. But then it's at a rally, right? And so does that create objective facts in a way in which the current justification statute may provide a defense to use that force? It does. And so our focus is saying, okay, we're looking at this. Is there somebody, Mr. Ah Loo has lost his life. To us, that is reckless conduct, but that's the nuanced complexity that I'm talking about.
So are you saying that the first 2 bullets were not reckless, or are you simply saying you don't think you could overcome the self-defense justification statute to charge?
I think that the latter is there, but also there is, listen to what AF says to us, as we stated in our probable cause statement. I should have taken the shot when I could have, basically, right? He says, I couldn't take that shot because once he started moving. And so certainly that backdrop is different than shooting down towards, over people, through people, and towards people who are marching, right? To us, that is reckless conduct, and that third shot is the basis on which we're filing our charges. There was a question, I'm sorry.
You said that you talked to the family victim in this case throughout the investigation. What was their reaction to what they found out yesterday when you talked to them? Just their overall reaction to this, the decision, and then also their behavior during the investigation?
We met with the family early on at that time in this room, and we told them that this was a very nuanced, complex issue. We told them that we will look at it with the seriousness it deserves. We told them to be patient with us through this process, right? We met with them yesterday, with Laura and her legal counsel yesterday. She's lost somebody that she loves. She's lost a partner. And that grief is palpable, understandable. And you know, we again explained, again, just like I did, why our timeline was what we were doing, why we reached the conclusion that we have. And from what I could gather, she understood what it was and was appreciative and supportive of our efforts. So, but in terms of your question, how does one feel when they lose somebody they love?
Can you say if the DA's office has or is looking into other organizers who maybe, have some kind of negligence involved in the situation that happened?
Nothing has been presented to us to look at it, and so, of course, we look at anything that law enforcement brings to us and would have us look at it, and we would go through the same analysis. What is the evidence? What is the allegation? What is the statutory construct in which we can hold somebody accountable? And criminal law is one of the remedies. There's also other remedies, so, but nothing that's been presented to us. Yes?
When Mr. Adler gave these statements, was he raised Miranda rights and informed he was a suspect?
Yeah, he came in voluntarily with his legal counsel and provided those statements. Any other questions? Okay. Oh,
Okay, one. Recklessly cause the death of another.
Yeah.
How does Utah statutes define that, or how have the courts interpreted that?
well, again, that is going to be a fact. So this is something that's going to be contested and go forward. Again, this is why I emphasize these are allegations. Mr. Alder deserves the presumption of innocence, and this is something that will get played out as we go forward. All the different issues that are part of that. Okay. Okay. Thank you.